I was told that I have a soft voice, so I'm going to speak a little louder for as much as I can before it quits on me. I've lectured here at Convocation for about 10 years, and I've been leading up to the 2 lectures I'm doing today on basic and advanced money magic, because that's one of my specialties that most of you don't know about. I came here as an expert in curses, and sorry? Over the years, I've become more and more proficient and focused my professional practice in wealth magic, prosperity magic. Over the past several years, that's become my primary source of income because I've made a lot of people money. But I've also made myself a lot of money in a very different way. I've been keeping a secret from all of you who haven't been to my classes before and know me, and that is, I think I may be responsible for one of the most spectacular money spells in generations, maybe 100 years. And I'm going to be telling you more about that during the second class, and this is sort of bait for you to come to the second one. This is more of a historical survey of different forms of money magic from multiple traditions throughout history, and the second class will be about how I did what I did and how you can do it too, not merely in a formulaic way, but develop your own paths to millionaire magic, as I call it. All right, introduction. Some people have a problem with the idea of magic for personal gain. I just want to get that out of the way first and foremost, because this is all about magic for personal gain. I think magic for that purpose is noble, because if you don't have personal resources, you can't help other people. When you have a magic to bring yourself prosperity and you are successful, you become a part of the cycle of prosperity to reach out to other people, help people who are in need, buy things from businesses which need your income, and to give to charities. The goal in prosperity magic is ultimately to become a part of the cycle of prosperity, not to hoard your wealth. That's an abuse of money. You should be a receiver of wealth and a giver of wealth. That is a noble and a holy calling. And one of the notions that will come up in the second lecture is that money is sacred to an extent because it's a medium of compassion. I'm going to start off with hoodoo and folk magic. It's something I know very well. I do a lot of hoodoo, but I also do a lot of planetary magic. I don't know if I'll have time to get into some of the details of that, but your foundation, my foundation, and I think this is very accessible to people, is hoodoo. Hoodoo uses lots of different methods, but there's a kind of a core symbolism which runs through the majority of it. And it's things which are like gold or resemble gold, things which resemble coins and currency or actually coins and currency, things which resemble human hands, parts of animals which are fierce, insatiable, and persistent, because they represent somebody who's hungry for money or hungry for something. Rare objects like $2 bills, mysterious, attracting things like lodestones and magnets, and things which are pleasantly spicy, which I suspect originally came by way of planetary magic during the Renaissance, which got imported into hoodoo. Pardon me, I'm a little bit parched. There are many different goals in money magic, and I'll try to cover as many of them as I can, but for all the goals, there are recipes and general traditions which you can adapt to do with money what you want. The primary goal is, of course, to attract money by various means. Another goal in money magic in hoodoo is to draw customers to your business if you have a storefront or an online shop. Another goal is to bring favors of money and loans from other people. It's a little bit less popular now, but there is a tradition in multiple systems of magic to finding hidden treasure, and that's its own interesting thing. Gambling magic is prominent in hoodoo. I haven't been terribly successful at it, but I do want to cover it a little bit. And let's see. Gambling magic is actually interesting in hoodoo because it seems to be a probability altering method, and it's really good for things other than gambling as well. There are methods which are distinct from attraction of money for protecting and keeping your money, which are really cool. There's spells for job getting and maintaining your employment once you actually have a job. Also getting clients if you're a freelancer, and getting promotions once you're at your job. There are spells for gaining money gifts, which I do myself, and poverty curses, which I may not have time to cover today, but I've done before and they're pretty effective. All right. One of the oldest modalities in hoodoo are the use of hurricane lamps, even before candle magic was invented. They are to be burned perpetually in homes and in businesses. It's very old school, and you fill it with kerosene, paraffin, and sometimes you dye the liquid with green dye. And you trim the wick periodically, and you clean the hood of the hurricane lamp daily. And the base is where you put your curios, your herbs, for money luck. And here's an example of a standard hoodoo hurricane lamp. You put in the base a lodestone, iron pyrite, a mercury dime, iron filings to feed the lodestone, a condition oil related to money, cinnamon sticks, and you put a petition paper underneath it. I need to explain what a petition paper is. Who's familiar with a petition paper? Very good. The majority of you aren't, so I'm not wasting your time. Okay, you take a piece of paper, usually square-shaped, and you write your name in script across a certain number of times, 7, 9, or 13, and you write your goal across it. You don't pick up the pen from the paper at any point. It's an unbroken script, so you don't cross your T's and you don't dot your I's, that you can do so afterwards. And then you write your overall petition in a circle around it most of the time, also unbroken. That's a petition paper. It's a way of teaching the herbs, the curios, and the spell what you actually want, because it may not respond to it verbally. Usually in hoodoo folk magic, which is primarily Christian, you use Psalm 23 or another psalm which is associated with prosperity, but if you're uncomfortable with Christian prayer, use a prayer for prosperity from your own magical and spiritual traditions. It's also common to use red ink, green ink, as well as black ink for your petition paper underneath the hurricane lamp. More popular today are, of course, money candles. These are dressed with conjure oils directionally. So you take the candle, whether it's a encased glass candle or wax candle. Most people use wax candles which they insert into glass, or they burn on top of a candle holder, and you draw the conditioned oil towards you because you're trying to bring wealth to you. Directionality is very important in the hoodoo tradition. When you're doing curses, where you're trying to push something away from you, you're trying to spread the oil from the base to the top away from you. But for money, generally speaking, you want it to go towards you. There are lots of different conditioned oils which are traditional in hoodoo, like money drawing, wealthy way, I like that one a lot. Prosperity, steady work for that kind of a project, and so forth and so on. There are lots of different permutations of it in many different hoodoo vendors, and of course you can make a version of it yourself using maybe allspice oil, cinnamon oil, and various other essential oils with curios in the bottle, like iron pyrite, allspice berries, bayberries, and so forth. Then you sprinkle the top of the candle, usually with herbs which are associated with money, and sometimes mineral curios like crushed iron pyrite. And when you burn down the candle, the wax tracing sometimes will tell you whether the spell worked or not. If the glass is just burned and charred, or the glass breaks, or the candle goes out, that's usually an indication that the spell did not work. If it burns down completely cleanly, and that's an indication that perhaps your money spell has worked, and now you just have to wait for the good luck to come. Pardon me, I'm a bit parched. Yes?
When you're taking your drink water, what if it burns black on top and then it clears up?
That's an indication of blockages which are being broken through. The chard is basically, maybe you had a money curse or some general bad energy. It's burned it up, and when it burns clean at the bottom, it's an indication that success has been had and you've gotten rid of the badness.
Okay. Thank you.
Feel free to interrupt me and ask questions. I like that. All right. One of the things I do, which is a little bit heretical, because I'm not a purist when it comes to hoodoo. I combine little various traditions because I study many traditions. Normally, eclectic versions of magic don't work because A lot of people use that as a shortcut for deep knowledge in each individual tradition, but I actually have studied hoodoo pretty comprehensively and other magical traditions as well, and that gives me a little bit of leeway for combining things safely. This is not actually a combination of traditions, this is just me being fancy. This is what I do for my clients. What I do is I take beeswax sheets for making of candles, usually green, but not always, sometimes gold. And I take a flat wick and I write out the petition on the candle. And again, you're going to be burning this candle on top of petition, just petition paper like before. But in this case, I took a flat wick and I wrote out in green ink the petition along the wick. And then I wrapped the beeswax towards me as a part of the directionality process. And I sprinkled money herbs and pyrite within the candle itself. And then I dressed the candle with wealthy whey oil in this particular case, and I burned this, and this is one of the things I've done for my clients. I also used astrological timing in that one, which is sort of a hybrid aspect of that spell that I've done for clients. Hoodoo doesn't usually do astrological timing. What they do is, more traditionally, and I have done this occasionally, is that if you're looking at an old school clock and the hands are moving up, that's for things that you're drawing towards you, and if the hour and the minute hand are going down, that's for things being sent away.
I'm sorry, did you say that you burned the candle on top of the petition, or you put the petition in the candle?
In this particular case, I wrote it on the wick because the wick was flat cloth woven. Normally, you put the petition paper underneath something below the candle. You don't want it to basically catch fire with the petition, but it should be underneath, the candle should be on something glass, maybe an ashtray or something, and then you put the petition paper underneath that. All right, I read about this, a money call candle. This is really cool. You take a green candle and you anoint it with fast luck oil. Fast luck oil is one of my favorite hoodoo oils. You dress it with cinnamon. Cinnamon is a very common money herb. And sometimes you use powder and sometimes you use the broken up sticks. And you take 4 shiny pennies and you put it in a cruciform design around the base of the candle. So you have the candle and you have 1 penny here, 1 penny here, 1 penny here, 1 penny here, and you can think of this as invoking the 4 directions, and you can orient it according to the cardinal points. And once the candle's burned down, you take these 4 pennies and you put them at the 4 corners of your town as a way of drawing the wealth from all of your town towards you. Another method which is common in hoodoo are container-based magics like jars. Here's an example of a money master jar, which you mostly would be using if you have a storefront. You hide this jar near the front door to draw in wealth and prosperity to your business. All right, you take a mason jar and you clean it with Florida water. And you add a lodestone iron filings to feed the lodestone, master root, I love master root, bayberry, cinquefoil, that is 5-finger grass, very common hoodoo herb, very useful in many other contexts. Sweet woodruff, which is also known as master of the woods, Solomon's seal root, cinnamon, and a mercury dime bound into a gator claw, a gator paw, with green thread. You feed a drop of wicks, yes?
What's a mercury dime?
Okay. There's
I thought it was a banger.
no, it's cool, and I'm glad you're asking questions because I don't know your level of knowledge. Okay, a mercury dime is one of the cures which is very popular in hoodoo. It has a caduceus on the obverse side, and it's made out of silver. It kind of represents Mercury and commerce. The face on the other side kind of looks like the god Mercury a little bit, and it's used to represent calling upon the planetary power of Mercury, the thief, the gambler, and so forth, into the hoodoo tradition. It's considered very lucky, and it's a little hard to find.
Okay.
It used to be easier to find back when it was actual currency, but it's no longer the case. You feed this prosperity jar a drop of whiskey every day, otherwise you keep it shut. And this will bring great prosperity to your business. It's basically this is like a big mojo bag. It's a prayer in tangible form. It's a way of coalescing your intentionality, and it's believed to be, to a certain extent, alive.
I did have a question about
Sure.
burning on alligator paw. So am I taking all the little all the little goods and wrapping them up into.
Just the mercury dime.
Just the
You
dime.
can't- You can't fit it into all the other stuff.
I was gonna say, like, I've seen alligator paws, I know.
Yeah, you put the mercury dime in the alligator paw, and you wrap it up with green thread, and you
Gotcha.
drop it in the jar.
Gotcha.
And you should be praying to a higher power for prosperity while you do this. This is a sacred act. A theme that will recur is that there's a quality of sanctity in money magic, and if you don't include that, it will impair the effectiveness of your working. A lot of people have a kind of division in their mind between, money being filthy and wrong, and it's easy to understand. Capitalism is a brutal thing, but you have to reconcile yourself that the ideal of prosperity is itself is sacred, because everyone should get what they need to survive and have a little bit of good left over to give.
I see your storefront, you don't really have an exact storefront.
Yeah.
For example, I officiate weddings, I travel all over the place to these different venues and things. If I were going to do such a money jar, would that be, I guess, appropriate for my kind of business? Would I put it in my home or in my car? Or?
Well, one of the things about a hoodoo is that, and actually many magical traditions, is that money magic should be kept secret.
Okay.
One of the things that I've seen in magical traditions is that frequently love magic is either done secretly or openly depending upon the tradition, but money magic, because it has a degree of selfishness to it, is kept close to your vest. It's not something you want people to know about.
Okay.
When people aren't aware of it, they're more likely to be susceptible to it and give you more money.
As long as I hide it.
Yeah. So the answer to your question is you keep it in your home, in your office, where you basically deal with your money.
Okay.
When you go out to officiate, it'll just be acting towards drawing money into your home, even while you're doing your job out of your home.
Okay.
Do you have a handout with all these recipes on them? Because I can't write that fast.
That's cool. I intend on putting this on YouTube, unless something goes wrong with the camera. I really hope it doesn't go wrong with the camera.
I'm like, I'm not even keeping up here, so that's great.
It's okay. If you come away from this with one spell, it may be a life changer, so that's okay. There's so much material on Hoodoo right now that you can go online and find alternatives to this spell. The money jar here came from a book called Cashbox Conjure, which is from Lucky Mojo Publications. I believe that's by Aura LaForest, but if I got the name of the author wrong, I am so sorry. I've not used that one personally, but I thought it was really cool as an example of a money jar spell. I'll try to tell you which ones I've used successfully as I go. All right. Another very common tradition, particularly if you run a shop, is to have a money altar. Money altar is actually an extremely elaborate thing. It's usually done publicly because one of the things that people do is they have little jars for money, so that people who come in for luck will drop in a couple of dollars and top a couple of coins, and the owner of the shop gives that to charity to charge up that cycle of prosperity that I was talking about. Your money magic will not work unless you give back to a charity or to other businesses which are in need. Okay. Okay. I'm going to skip over that because I misread the paper. I'm going to talk about lodestone altars first. Lodestone altars is something that I definitely do, and the last time I taught somebody how to do a lodestone altar, they came back to me a year later and said their income had doubled. And lodestone altars are something that everybody should be doing. It's one of the first things you should be doing in prosperity magic altogether, because it's reliable and it's powerful. You take a lodestone. Do you know what a lodestone is? Who doesn't know what a lodestone is? Oh wow, okay. A lodestone is a hunk of iron. People used to believe that it was struck by lightning, though that may not be the case. It's basically natural magnetite. It's a natural magnet, and it has magnetic properties, even though it just looks like a kind of a dirty rock. Because it's magnetic, iron filings and bits of iron will stick to it. And it seems people have believed in many different traditions throughout the centuries that it draws things for you. In ancient Greece and Rome, they would have paired lodestones so that lovers who were separated by maybe the husband was going to war or something would come back to each other. But in the African American hoodoo traditions and other folk traditions to some extent, lodestones are also used for wealth, and they work really well. There's a whole bunch of traditions related to lodestones, but the most basic one I'm going to explain to you. You take as big a lodestone as you can get, because the bigger it is, the more magnetic power it usually has, and you baptize it. You take some whiskey or Hoyt's cologne, which is an ingredient, which is a perfume that is used in cologne, which is used in hoodoo a lot, and you wash it and you baptize it with a name. And you say, okay, money lodestone, I'm going to call you Fido. One of the common traditions with baptizing a lodestone is to give it a pet's name, because like a dog, it's going to fetch you money. I could give it a cat's name, but cats don't fetch very well.
You know our cats. Yeah. You know our
Well,
cats.
that's food, not money.
Maybe you could teach it that the money is mice, but most of my cats have never really caught mice very well. They're pretty lazy.
Yeah.
All right, once you baptize it and give it a name, you have to treat it like a living thing. Now, this is outside of the hoodoo tradition generally, but I also studied Hermetic magic from the medieval era and Renaissance, and there was a notion that lodestones were an example of occult virtue, which means that it doesn't have any rational reason for drawing money or iron filings. This is a gift from God himself. And because of that irrational, inexplicable power, it's reaching up into the divine realm. Another part of the medieval and Renaissance tradition is that just like the lion was considered the king of the beasts, the lion is the king of the mineral kingdom. And as such, it has a kind of mineral intelligence, an alien intelligence. So under normal circumstances, lodestones have potential for becoming awake, being ensouled and inspirited, which is what you do in the baptism. The baptism is waking up the inherent occult virtue of the lodestone and getting it to serve you. You're basically catching a stray animal and you're making it into your pet and you're teaching it to do tricks.
So do you charge that stone after you baptize it?
That's up to you. Usually when you baptize it, you say, I give you the name Fido, and you recite in hoodoo Psalm 23 for prosperity, or another prayer. According to your own tradition, it all basically works, as long as you feel strongly about the prayer. You're putting an aspect of the divine world into the spark of the stone.
I have a question.
Yes.
Would a rare earth permanent magnet work as a substitute, or is the lodestone unrefined? an
Right.
important aspect?
They both work, they work differently. Okay, because natural materials have a kind of a spirit already within it. Artificial materials are kind of mutated and altered, and they can be taught to do things, but a lot of the power is coming from you because it's been very artificially processed. The magnets are used in hoodoo, but lodestones are more traditional. Yes?
Because the lodestone is magnetized, should you keep it away from your computer?
Yes. The neodymium magnets especially is what you're talking about, because I
Yeah.
do use those as well. That'll don't put your credit cards near them either, you know? that'll do the opposite of what you want.
What was it that you would be baptizing in?
Yeah, you can, the earliest version was to baptize it with whiskey. Whiskey's the most traditional, but then they've got elaborate and used Hoyt's cologne, which is a cologne which has been used in hoodoo for quite a long time. There's a book called Hoyle's Book of Games, and it sort of got conflated between gambling and the name of the cologne. So, you know, I actually have this book, Hoyle's. It's a traditional manual for card games and other types of games, and the similarity of it gave Hoyt's cologne an association with gambling and money generally, and actually magic in general. Because Hoyt's is not just used for gambling and it's not just used for money, it's used for practically everything in hoodoo to give things a kind of energetic charge. Alcohol is very powerful in hoodoo and not really for drinking. Alcohol came out of alchemists' labs back, I guess around 1000 AD, maybe earlier. and it has that quality of magic concentrated spirit. The reason why we call alcohol spirits is because the alchemists believed that it was the equivalent of the spirit which connected the soul and the body, but that's a big tangent and I don't want to get into it. It's fascinating to me, but it might be boring to you. All right, so you take your lodestone, and I put it in a saucer, but sometimes people put it in a plate or directly upon an altar, and you put things around it which symbolize what you want. In this case, it's money. So what a lot of people do is they create crossed currency underneath it, and usually it's a $2 bill, but if you can afford to put more underneath, a $100 bill, $20 bill, whatever, you put it in a cross formation, you put the lodestone on top of it. If you're using a saucer, as I do, you don't want to get the money dirty, so you put the lodestone in the saucer and put the crossed currency underneath it. You can put a petition paper, like I described before, underneath it as well. But you want to put next to the lodestone things which symbolize money in the hoodoo tradition. So one of the most common things to put next to it is iron pyrite, fool's gold. Sometimes you'll also put herbs in that are associated with money, like again, cinnamon, like I said before, allspice berries, bayberries, just a long list of herbs. Chamomile is a really big hoodoo herb, and I'll make a list of hoodoo herbs a little bit later on. And sometimes you'll put photographs of what you want around it. I've done that over the years. I put photos of supermodels next to my love lodestones, and they didn't work at all, unfortunately. But I have a kind of a cheat. I'm friends with Kat Ironwood, who runs LuckyMojo.com. She makes lots of really cool hoodoo oils with a lot of traditional labels on them. And here's my cheat: I take the money lodestones in the bottle, the money oils in the bottle, and I put it next to the lodestone because it's got a picture of what I want, like money on the label. It's got the herbs and curios in it, and it's got the scents associated with money. And this is my sneaky way of saving time by basically taking practically every money lodestone that she sells, money oil that she sells, and I put it in a circle around my lodestone. What saves you a little bit of time and money. Though it can make the lodestone altar a little bit cluttery.
An altar be cluttery?
No way.
I have so many altars in my home. I have like 20. And all of them are like basically cinder blocks with spread cloths, various cloths over it. What I do with my money lodestone altar is I take a bandana with money print, and I put that on top of the cinder block, and put the various things that are flat, like the petition paper, the crossed currency underneath the saucer. Sometimes with my money lodestone, I use a green saucer, if you can get that, but sometimes I use white, which is pretty neutral.
Can you sometimes use bay leaves instead of bayberry?
I can't hear you.
Can you use bay leaves sometimes?
Absolutely.
Instead of bayberry?
Yeah, bay leaves is another good herb. But bayberry is more traditional.
Now, a question with the altar, the money altar, is that the condition it's in, whether it's cluttered, well kept, how does that affect the money magic?
Generally speaking, most magical traditions with regard to money are like feng shui, you don't want clutter. But with regards to money altars and lodestone altars, clutter is actually really good. You want an abundance of things in your life, and that's what it symbolizes.
So it's just jewelry and stuff like that on it?
You can what?
Jewelry and all of that?
Oh yeah, totally.
Things that represent well, and how do you keep the damn cats off of it?
Well, I know I have a friend who's kind of is hiding her money altar from her parents, so she keeps it in a drawer in her cabinet, which they don't go into her sock drawer.
There we go. So
Yeah.
let me keep the cats out.
So if you have a store, would you keep it outside or you would hide it somewhere?
Well, if you have a store, you can do a more fancy money altar, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But it kind of depends. I know that some hoodoo stores have a multiplicity of lodestones throughout it, including one in the cash box of the cash register. Sorry.
If you baptize your lodestone
Yeah.
with whiskey, and you pour the whiskey into the saucer, assuming, right?
No, you're wetting it in your hand. You're pouring it in your hand, and you're cleaning it off.
Oh, you clean it off, and then you place it on the saucer. which
Yes.
is the cross.
And the whiskey evaporates pretty quickly. I mean, a lot of people put other things on lodestones. I find that kind of is grimy. Some people put lodestone oil. When I put lodestone oil on my lodestone, it just got greedy and kind of nasty looking, but there are other uses for lodestone oil. Now, another thing you can do if it's not in a drawer is you can burn a candle, or you can keep your hurricane lamp next to the lodestone as a way of attracting wealth to that location in your home. But obviously you can't set a fire in your drawer or your house will burn down. That's not prosperity.
Unless you're well
Unless
insured.
the-
Right?
Sure, yeah. All right, here's some other curios. Let's see. Sand dollars are really common. I only found out about that recently. Fossilized sand dollars, they call it a dollar for a reason. Basically, you put that as one of the curios on your altar. You can use lots of things which are not just herbs, but animal curios as well. So a gator paw placed near your lodestone will also be powerful. Now here's one of my heresies. I think that from what I've learned from other traditions of magic, because I think lodestones have a kind of natural intelligence, things from the mineral kingdom communicate better with the other things from the mineral kingdom.